Support for this podcast comes from listeners and St. Alphonsus Health System, a regional network of hospitals, clinics, and care providers. St. Alphonsus offers comprehensive healthcare services to individuals and families throughout the community. More information about services and locations is available at stalphonsus.org.
Last school year, the counselor at Maxine Johnson Elementary held a weekly mental health group to help fourth grade girls. The boys in the grade took notice and asked,
"Why is there no fourth grade boys group?"
They reminded her,
Boys have problems too.
I'm Jackson Holmes. How boys in Parma are overcoming stigmas to take mental health into their own hands. Listen now on BoiseStatePublicRadio.org.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector, Idaho's daily news. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. This morning, we're learning that the State Board of Education wants to change its image, starting with its logo. Plus, there's a change to speed limits on some Boise streets. It is Wednesday, the 17th of December. Here we go with today's stories. Out-of-pocket cost for healthcare insurance purchased through Affordable Care Act marketplaces is expected to rise sharply next year. That's because federal premium tax credits expire at the end of this month. Idaho was the first state to complete this year's open enrollment period, and as Troy Oppie reports, officials are cautiously optimistic that people are keeping their coverage.
Enrollment in Idaho's individual health insurance marketplace actually rose for next year, says Pat Kelly, executive director of Your Health Idaho, the state's insurance exchange.
Overall, our enrollment was up about 4%.
About 144,000 people signed up for coverage. The average cost rose about $900 a year. Kelly says more people chose bronze-level insurance plans this year. Those have lower premiums but higher costs if you need care.
It's really hard to know what sacrifices they've made when they've decided to stay covered. Have they given up sports for their child, or are they no longer able to go on vacation, or what other sacrifices are they making in order to stay covered?
He says they predict as many as 20,000 people could discontinue coverage over the first several months of the new year once the reality of higher costs hits pocketbooks. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
The Idaho State Board of Education meets today. They've got a full agenda, including a review of capital plans for Boise State and the University of Idaho. And then there's a line item called rebranding. The State Board of Ed says it wants to update its visual identity. So the board is expected to approve a new logo today, something it will use on its websites, publications, and presentations. You will likely see it in short order, but it is a large I and a large D, presumably representing Idaho, and it features 3 different shades of blue. The new mission statement, quote, "We lead Idaho's public education system to prepare every learner for success and strengthen our state's future." Today's meeting gets underway at 9 a.m. at the downtown Boise offices of the State Board of Ed. Speed limits on Boise City streets will now be uniformly 20 miles per hour instead of up to 30 miles per hour under certain conditions. As James Dawson tells us, the change comes after a deadly year on the road for cyclists, pedestrians, and drivers.
As of December 8th, city staff say 7 people have died and 96 others have had serious injuries from traffic accidents in Boise this year. That includes an 8-year-old girl in November who was hit and killed by a driver in Boise's North End. City Council member Meredith Stead says this change will hopefully make it less confusing for drivers.
It is also then easily enforceable by our police department as well, which I know that we've heard a lot on from constituents that they'd like to see more of.
Council members unanimously agreed to the change, which takes effect immediately. James Dawson, Boise State Public Radio News.
Officials with the U-Haul company are quoted in the Lewiston Tribune as saying you should never put a propane tank inside a U-Haul. In fact, the instructions say, quoting here, death, dismemberment, or serious injury may result. In fact, that's what happened this past weekend in Lewiston. An investigation has now confirmed that a standard propane tank for a barbecue grill was inside a U-Haul when it exploded and killing the driver, 61-year-old Douglas Peterson of Meridian. In fact, he had just rented the U-Haul. He drove about 100 feet and it exploded. At Boise City Hall on Tuesday, as expected, a conversation about liquor in public places. You'll remember that a year ago, on a very close vote, the City Council approved the sale of liquor in specific city parks during certain events, the request coming from Boise Pride and Treefort Music Festival. That pilot program ends at the end of this year, so the City Council was asked yesterday to make it permanent, make it a part of city code. But like last year, there was a debate. Councilwoman Kathy Corliss said she still thought it was not a good idea.
For these reasons stated, that the liquor has a much higher contact per volume than standard beer, wine, and hard ciders. For those who prefer the taste of liquor, there's lots of other canned options available with a lower alcohol content. And second, we see through Gallup poll recently in August, there's a continual decline in people drinking at all ages, especially, happily to say, our youth. And thirdly and finally, we've learned that there's really no safe levels of alcohol consumption. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting this motion.
So all that said, the vote was to agree to the sale of liquor for approved larger events in certain larger parks. The vote was, again, very close, 3-2 in favor. In sports, the Boise State women's basketball team is back in action tonight, and they have a lot of momentum. Their record is 9-2 so far. They're on the road for their next two games. They're in New Mexico, where they'll take on the Lobos this evening. And then the women head to California, where on Saturday they take on San Diego State. And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. What do you say? We'll see you back here Thursday. By the way, you can stay in touch always on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. And will you tell your friends and family about The Connector and how they can find it anywhere they find their favorite podcasts? But for now, from me to you, thanks for listening.
Hey, I'm Peter Pruitt from Zoo Idaho.
And I'm Dr. Leif Tapinola with the Idaho Museum of Natural History.
Together we host The Nature of Idaho, a podcast all about how our state's amazing landscapes, wildlife, and geology shape life here in the Gem State.
Each week we dive into nature stories from across Idaho, everything from fossils to forests, and sometimes even a few fun facts you can share on your next hike.
So join us as we celebrate everything that makes wild Idaho special.
Listen to The Nature of Idaho from KISU, wherever you get your podcasts, or at KISU.org.